Hello, I'm your host, David Newson, and welcome to Coded in Gold. This podcast explores the fractured, beautiful pieces of our modern life through compelling stories and conversations with exceptional individuals. Let's get started. Welcome. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Jeffrey Shaw. Jeffrey is a business coach, consultant, speaker, and author of Selling to the Rich. He helps luxury brands attract ideal clients and build deeper emotional connections in their customer experience. In our conversation, we discussed his insights from his years as a portrait photographer, his soft life era, and his simple community building traditions. We also get deep into one of my favorite aspects of marketing, human behavior and psychology. So without further ado, here's Jeffrey Shaw. Jeffrey, welcome to Coded in Gold. It's so nice to see you again.
You as well, David. Glad to be here with you.
Awesome. So I was taking a look at your book, Selling to the Rich, and I wanted to kick off with this because, you start the book off in this way as well. And it starts with so many things that are reminiscent of I don't know, they're just nostalgic for me, I guess. But it was okay, a campground, the Adirondacks or some part of upstate New York, right? Where it's this family gathering that's been happening. You're a photographer. There's a payphone involved. Can you
yeah, crazy, right?
You tell this story.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always important to me in the work that I do. And I do this from the stage as a speaker as well, to make sure that I'm relatable for the audience, because the fact of the matter is 99% of people in the luxury space didn't grow up in the world of the people they're serving. And I actually think there's a lot of value in that, but it also comes with a lot of challenges. I mean, I have two primary keynotes. One of them is specific, aligned with my book, Sell to the Rich. The other talk is called Luxury Level Thinking. And that talk is really about mindset. And it's because when you don't come from the world of people you serve, you have more to unlearn than you realize, because you're carrying assumptions and judgments and old stories, not only about the people you're serving, but your own limited thinking. And one of the things I talk about in that keynote is that, we should be grateful for our past and grateful for where we come from, but it should be a leverage point, not a rope, right? I mean, it can't hold us back. So the way I kick off the book, my first thought with the book was I do this with everything. I like to make sure I'm relatable. So the story I told in the book, which was 100% true, really fine details, because that all kind of came back to me, which was, I think 23 years old at the time. I went into business at 20, thinking I was going to be this hotshot photographer, not specifically for any particular audience. I actually went back to my hometown, which was called Hopewell Junction. So as I like to say, everything about my childhood by the name of the town I grew up in, it was hopeless. Right. There's a little country town. And here I thought, I'm going to be this hotshot photographer. Well, nobody was buying it. And the business was trickling at best after 3 years. And that's when I understood I was barking up the wrong tree. I was meant to serve an affluent clientele. And I knew nothing about that clientele, knew nothing about that world, but I knew
How did it hit you? How did it strike you?
Actually, a potential client who ended up not hiring me because she couldn't afford me. She said to me, I made my best sales pitch ever, as we always do, right? I was really promoting the benefits of having really good photographs to preserve memories, hand down generations. And she said to me, well, that sounds great and all, but I don't have the luxury of paying for my future. I don't know how I'm paying my rent this month. And I realized that's the difference. That's when I realized I needed to work with people who could invest in the future in one way or another, whether it was investing in photographs, investing in money investments.
Sure.
That's when it hit me. It's I need to work with people with discretionary income. And that was you could talk about values and all the other things that line up, but that was the main thing. But I realized that when you get underneath understanding people with discretionary income, they have a whole other way of thinking. They have a whole other set of values. And that was entirely different than my own family, because my family was like many others in the community, were month to month. So but I had a different mindset even as a kid. I'm like, I didn't understand the thinking of people around me. Why were they so short-sighted? I had life insurance when I was 19 years old. I bought a 55-year policy when I was 19, right?
Wow.
I just was always thinking down the road, like visionary, the life I was going to build for myself, how the hell I was going to get out of this town. But the people around me were like, let's just figure out how to get by today.
Do you think that was a motivator for you? Like,
100%.
get me out of this town?
Get,
Because I can
yeah.
relate. I can totally relate to
Yeah.
that.
And thankfully, I had a talent because I knew no other way. Like, I didn't grow up in an area where people talked about university or people basically, if you even finished high school, you went right into some labor business or IBM. I mean, I grew up, Hopewell
Right.
Junction, oddly enough, is the home of IBM's, it was anyway, the largest computer production plant in the world.
Wow.
And it was a really weird upbringing because it was all farmland that IBM bought because they knew what their future was. My father was one of the first 90 employees at IBM, which
Wow.
sounds more prestigious than it is because he didn't even have a high school education. He dropped out of high school, so he was just on a plant, right? So he's basically a modern day.
But this is
coal.
also a very interesting. So, and I'm pausing here just to make
Yeah.
a point to underscore this point because it is important, and I think there's also something at work in America today where there's a lot of folks that I think have this feeling of feeling left behind. But like in my hometown, for example, which was Oswego, New York,
Okay.
upstate Lake
Way
Ontario.
up north. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had a paper mill, a coal burning plant, a natural gas burning, energy facility, and then 3 nuclear power stations, right? And so it was, and my dad was a nuclear engineer, and that's literally why we were there. But again, just like you mentioned, like it was rural farmland basically before industry arrived, and
100%.
then it felt like during my childhood, during the 80s, was like its heyday. Like things were booming. And I can't, but I will also
There's
say
so
at
many
that time-
lessons that grew up in that, right?
yeah, and
So
I couldn't wait to get out.
yeah, I couldn't either. And so many similarities. So and tons of lessons. One is you're saying, like, I grew up in a area, I mean, we had party lines. So we shared our phone number with 5 families because there were so few phone numbers or phone
Oh my
lines.
gosh, yes.
Right. So
Party lines. Oh my
party lines. Like, I mean, most people today have no concept of this. So, like, literally, we shared, like, when the phone rang, you had to know your distinctive ring, right? Or if you needed to make an outgoing call, you picked up the receiver to see if any of your 5 neighbors were on the line.
Right.
And then we would hang up. Nowadays, we would totally just listen in and be nosy. But back then, you were actually honest about it. And yet my father would be bringing home the latest inventions by IBM. I learned DOS as a kid. And my father, as a
Wow.
kid, he used to talk about someday there'll be barcodes and everything and we won't scan. Yeah, we won't hardly ever use cash. And I thought he was smoking something. I'm like, what do you mean? It just all sounded so it was this weird mix. But then you also unpacked something else that's so valuable when you grow up in that atmosphere. So yes, it absolutely drove me to get out of it. I did not want to be a laborer. I just saw
Right.
more value in myself. Thankfully, I had a talent, but I saw value in my life before I saw my talent. I just knew that this was not my destiny. And then, but in the heyday, and IBM was massive. I mean, my father was one of the first 90 employees. He unfortunately died at 52. I think IBM killed him.
Oh my goodness.
But he was, he
Oh
died
my
at 52. I literally think a lot of it was the stress and the culture. And when he died, there were 22,000 employees at the same plant. So the growth was massive. And here we were in the 80s. And here's what I saw, another great business lesson. The entire area, the entire economy of a very large area was completely contingent and reliant on IBM. Everybody geared their services. They owned real estate all over, and every service from graphic artists to restaurants, everybody catered to the IBMer,
Yeah, that's right.
as they're referred to, right?
Wow.
Well, I sat there and thought, this seems like a dead end here. Like that, I looked at that and thought, this can't go well because no business is going to stay at the top of the game forever.
Right.
And sure enough, when IBM had their hard times, the entire area was decimated.
Yeah.
It came back in other ways, more because of a spillover from New York City. It's only about 2 hours north of New York City. So
Okay.
eventually people started migrating for other reasons. But in the day when IBM was shutting down real estate right and left and just the vacancies, and it could have destroyed the area. And again, important business lesson, because no one should put all their eggs in. Here we're told in business so often that niche down, niche, niche, niche. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Like, you can't niche so narrow that you are vulnerable to a change in the economy, a pandemic.
So this is very interesting. I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, even though this is my personal podcast, we're talking about business, which is also a love of mine.
Yeah.
So we're having the
Yeah.
business conversation today, which I'm really
Well,
excited
I have a
about.
hard time separating the two.
Well, I mean, I have a hard time too.
Yeah.
Like there's times where, I'm talking about community and, some more personal things,
Mhm.
but like business runs through my veins. Like it runs. It is literally a part of my DNA. And part of it, I think the love of it for me comes from studying the consumer, like their behaviors, how they move through
Mhm.
the world, and that. Like I'm a student. I'm a sponge for learning more about other human beings. Um, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is like, oh, okay, so we are in these unique areas, but still, actually, like the same state
Mhm.
with these booming businesses but still catering. And I remember in my town there were things were all catered towards the nuclear plant folks, right?
Mhm.
Everything about the town was that. And I just remember the town. I mean, also I always knew that I was different, right? I always knew that I was gay, so it was, that wasn't. I always knew that, but I didn't feel really comfortable being. I could not be out, let alone in my community, my family. I couldn't even be out in my family because I was
Agreed.
just, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I
Um,
didn't come out till 44. A lot of those reasons. So there you go.
and I knew I had to get out. But one of the
Hmm.
things that I grew up always, and it was a different era too. There was not the internet. I could not go online and find information. So
Hmm.
I would call, there would be TV ads for cars. And I would call and order. They always used to produce these beautiful, um, oh gosh, like high gloss printed brochures for every car model
Hmm.
that was
True.
made.
Hmm.
And so I would call Honda. I would call all of them, and they would send them in the mail, right? Because they were
Hmm.
like, this is how they did business. They were like, oh yeah, I'll send you that, and then you could get the pictures of the chips of the paint, so you got a good color idea and all of that kind of stuff. But that's where I grew up reading copy
Wow.
that was professional copy. And then, of course, I learned a lot. Well, my love, and I was magnetized to catalogs because those were abundant in the
Yeah.
80s.
Hmm.
And I remember, the Sears catalog coming and the J.C.
Hmm.
Penney catalog
Yeah.
coming. And then there was a company once upon a time, I love technology. It was called Service Merchandise.
Yeah.
And they used to have like these
Yeah.
very interesting, like electronic
I
pieces.
remember them. Yeah.
But it was like super cool. But I remember like growing up almost. I grew up in a very middle class, and after the age of 9, raised by a mom who was raising 5 kids alone.
Wow.
And what am I saying here? What I'm saying is like, I was living vicariously through, a lens towards. I was always drawn towards these things that were beautiful, and the way that the words were written on a page and the way that the
Mm.
photographs were taken. I was drawn towards beautiful things. And that's not to say I was wishing I was living a different life, maybe a little bit,
Hmm. Yep.
but there was something pulling me out and away from, growing up on 4 acres of land in rural upstate New
Yeah.
York where your next door neighbor was a farmer.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, there is just an innate pull, and one that wasn't shared by. I mean, I have two older brothers. They didn't share that, right? It was different. I mean, to your point about the connection between business and personal, I've always said, for me, particularly, I've been self-employed my entire life. So for me, business has been my personal growth on steroids. Like,
Mm.
without it, I don't know that I would have had the exposure to challenges, to challenges within myself, challenges from the outer world. Like, I would not have been exposed to the number of challenges and opportunities in any other pace of life. Like, to me, being in business accelerated everything so quickly because your exposure is so much greater. So that's where to me it's like it continues to be really a journey of personal development for me. Like I
Mm.
look at, my life today, what's driving me. You and I are of similar age, and yeah, we can reminisce about service merchandise. And I think that was the first time I ever touched a calculator. Like that was like a new
Right,
invention
sure.
back then. I think they invented the calculator. I mean, it seems crazy, but like we can make ourselves sound so old, and we're not. And the thing for me, it's like here I am now at 60 and feeling like the next 10, 15 years are going to be my biggest presence ever. And it's such a different environment than what we
Mm.
were led to believe this stage of life was supposed to look like. I refer to it as my soft life era. Like I had to give it a name because I don't like the word retirement. Like there is not a retirement
No.
fiber in my being.
Right. Same. Same. Same.
Nothing is going out to pasture until
That's right.
the heart stops, right? So I look at it as my soft life era. Like this next 15 years is this era of life where I don't have to hustle so hard. I don't have to fight so hard. I look at it as a complete energetic difference. Like I feel now that I'm pulled by purposeful work. I'm pulled by people that I absolutely love to be in front of on stage. I'm pulled by a true desire to change other people's lives for the better. So I'm
Mm.
not pushing myself through anything. I'm not pushing myself through my days. I'm not pushing myself towards goals. It's just all this pulling energy. And
I love it.
it's not hard.
I love it.
Being pulled is not hard. Being
No.
pulled is not hustling. It's not hard work. So that's why I call it my soft life era. It's no less impact. In fact, I think it's more impact. It's no less money. I'll probably make more money in the next 15 years than I did the previous 15 years. It's just soft.
Mm.
And I think that's important for, people of a certain age. And when that happens is an independent feeling. But for me, it just sort of over the last couple of years, I just really genuinely felt this transition. But again, none of it, it's so much of it is business. So much of it is my position in the world as a business owner and what I do for a living that creates the opportunities for that pull.
Mm.
There's zero energy about being put out to pasture in my being.
Right. Okay, I've got a question. In my work, I do marketing for, and it's very, very niche, but like for wealth management firms.
Yep.
And it's a very large industry, so it's not super nichey. But my question about, you said something very interesting about niches, like some folks will coach you on, you have to go niche, you have to go niche, and that is definitely something that happens in wealth management, where they say like, oh, we see the dynamics of wealth changing. We need to have a women in wealth segment, for example. And I'm just kind of like, okay, middle-aged straight white dudes creating a women in wealth segment does not make a whole lot of sense to me. And if you just
Doesn't
take
make
your,
sense to the women either.
yeah, yeah, and if you take just the women in your firm and say,
Yeah.
hey, you're going to start this women in wealth segment, I'm sorry, but that's doomed for failure.
Yeah.
When you start, creating niches just because you've been taught niches sell more than boom. But you said, well, what happens when the dynamics of a marketplace change and you've gone all in on a very specific narrow niche? Then what?
Yeah.
So talk
Yeah.
to me a little bit about your view of niches, because I think that would
100%.
also be
Yeah.
beneficial for certainly my clients I know.
And again, it has a personal consequence to it, right? And a positive consequence, because I've seen, as a coach, over decades, I've seen so many people feel their souls being shut down by being told to niche. Like just watching people feel crushed because they were led to believe they had to pick a niche. They had to decide on one thing. So I've been talking, actually, I wrote a book that never got published called The New Niche, because it was my goal
Wow.
14 years ago to redefine this. And it ended up being folded into my first book, Lingo, because as a standing topic, it didn't seem to make sense to the editor I was working with. I kind of disagree now. Like, I think it would have meant something. But here's my view on it. You have to be known for something. Your goal is to be known for something. That's your niche. Your niche is your recognizable position in the world, your recognizable thought leadership. Simon Sinek has a niche, right? We will forever know Simon as the start with why guy, or even just the why guy. Brene Brown has a niche. We will forever associate her with vulnerability.
That's right.
But once you've made yourself known for something, you actually are giving yourself more freedom to go wide, because people will always know you for something, like that you've grounded yourself in the world for something. And when I'm working with my coaching clients, I'm typically the one that sees their niche topic in them. That's why they've hired me as a coach. And I say that because it's almost impossible to see it in yourself, which is why we hire coaches, or should hire coaches.
Right.
And I say, like, I think particularly good as a coach because of who I am as a photographer. My entire being sees what the rest of the world doesn't see. That's what made me a photographer. That's what, and as a photographer, I photographed entirely on location, because the way my brain works is I'm really good at seeing things in pieces and composing it as a whole. It worked as a photographer, and it works as a coach, because I tell my client, bring me your mess, bring me your pieces, bring me all your feelings of, like, damn it, like, I'm so close, it's just not coming together yet. I'm like, yes. I'll see what's going to make the difference. So I often see the message in my clients before they can. Again, I see their entire bodies change because they agree. They're like, oh my God, that's it. Like, I was working with one of my, a client I have a high-end coaching group called High Achievers. It's like the best of the best of my clients. And this one particular client, she has been promoting herself as a speaker around, first it was like overcoming obstacles, and then she was sort of morphing into courageousness. And I kept saying, that's not it. That's not it. Like, it just wasn't it. And it wasn't unique enough to be marketable either, to talk about courageousness. Or when we had one of our retreats in Paris earlier this year, just listening to her, it came to me. I saw it and I'm like, oh my God, your message is don't settle. Your message is to tell the world, don't settle. And then I just connected all the dots, because I knew enough about her life, like the marriage she left, the job she left to start her own business, phenomenally successful, her fight against breast cancer. Like, she didn't settle for the diagnosis. Like, right. She just doesn't settle. And as soon as I said it, it tapped into like what she knew so deep in her soul, is like, damn right. Like, I am not someone that settles. Once you have that niche of what you stand for, the next question I present her is like, okay, you want to be a speaker on this topic of don't settle. What are the audiences that need to hear that message? And then you go horizontal. Right? Then there's women's leaderships, there's motivational events, there's corporate events, you start looking at the audiences of people that need the message of don't settle.
Oh, I love that.
Right? So that's your niche is within you. Your niche is, what is the thing that you are putting a stake in the ground, and the world is going to know you for that thing. And then the light bulb goes off about how many people, where you can go with that. And it's very horizontal. So now you also have a smart business plan. You have a business plan built on multiple audiences, probably multiple services as well. So you're not subject to one thing in one industry or one audience or one time in the world destroying you. You have more flexibility.
I love that. I love that.
So it's got smart practical advice. But I will say, David, the thing that's most rewarding, though, is to watch, just to literally, even over Zoom, watch people's bodies become free from the shackles of feeling like they need to pick one thing, that they need to be so narrow, because it's for creative people. And I don't mean just traditionally creative people, just business owners, people that are out in the world. That is so soul crushing that this frees them.
It's so limiting. It's so limiting. And it's not to say that a business niche doesn't work.
Absolutely. It works for some.
Yeah. But what I love about how the way that you're framing this is, your niche is within you, and then it gives you possibility, right? And this possibility allows you to go out, much more broadly.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, to your point, like, hardly anybody had a more niche business than I did as a photographer. I worked with very wealthy families that were 99.9% white and lived a certain lifestyle. It was very niche. Thankfully, there were enough of them in the world, right? So it was broad enough, and it's a very tight community. So I'm very aware of that, which is almost why I can talk about it more, because that worked really well in the 80s and 90s. it didn't work. It started not working so well with the invention of the internet, which is what has caused a lot of businesses to struggle, because when the internet came along, people
Mm,
overlooked the ease at which people can get information. So
right.
that niche of yours is no longer quite so valuable because people can get into that niche and they can
Yeah, yeah,
find
yeah. That's very
information.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I see the next evolution of that being, the AI era that,
Yeah.
is now, we're now in,
Yeah.
where people used to just, oh, they used to not have access to the internet, then they, had access to the internet. Now, like, there's all of this information available to them. Now people have access to like a guru or an oracle like,
Yeah.
large language model that can answer questions that are very complex.
Yeah. I think the
Um,
biggest thing that the biggest effect we're going to see of AI is speed. Like the
Speed. Oh yeah.
speed at which
Yes.
people are generating content, the
I
speed
feel
at
it
which you can get
already.
answers. Oh,
I feel it already.
right. It's all just so fast. Like
Yeah.
it's just faster than Googling, and it's just you get to a destination quicker than you would any other way. And I think I've even in my work as a consultant for luxury brands, I've spoken to some like luxury marketing is in sales is very driven by data and market research. And that's been one of my hangups
Oh yeah. I
because
want to
I'm all
talk to you about
about,
this.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm
Keep
all
going.
about
Keep going.
behavior. I'm all
Yeah.
about like you, like my strength is observing people's behavior because I think we need to, because we can stay ahead of the data. Data is always going to lag a little behind,
That's right.
except AI is closing that gap a little bit. It's never
Hmm.
going to me, I still believe in watching human behavior over anything because, as I say, having been a photographer for 40 years, I don't just know this clientele. I was in their closets for 40 years. Like, I
Right.
know this clientele because of the intimate conversations I had
Sure.
with them. So I know their behavior is different than what data shows. So data is valuable in market research and trends, but it's slow. It's gaining speed because of AI, but it's still not. It's never going to be as truthful as really understanding the human behavior behind people's actions and buying
Sure.
patterns.
Yeah. Um, people wear masks, in different
Absolutely.
places, in
Yeah.
different spaces.
Yeah.
And I don't know that AI necessarily is, capturing that type of data.
Yeah. No, it can't yet. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know where,
Oh yeah, yeah,
none of
yeah,
us know
sure.
exactly where it's
When
going
we're
to
all
go.
wearing
Yeah.
wearable devices and it's actually able to perceive what's
Yeah.
happening in real time in a room, then
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But there, to your point, and again, one of the things, because of my love of just observation of human behavior, it's why I love the luxury buyer and working in the luxury space so much. It's because they're more intense than ordinary folks. Like everything about them
Sure.
is just more intense.
Yeah.
They're more emotional. They're more hooked. They're more angry. They're more everything. So because of that, there's definitely a mask. Like there are things they reveal. And again, that's where I think that puts me at an advantage because, I had really intimate conversations with my clients, in part because of the amount of time I spent with them, but also out of necessity. I mean, there were family dynamics that usually the mom wanted me to understand in order to capture the true likeness of their family, like the son and father
Right.
that don't get along. You
Right.
know, how uncomfortable would it be as a to imagine if, without being aware of the dynamic between a father and a son, and I create a gorgeous portrait where they're like side by side, and I'm asking the father to put his arm around his son. Like that family would never be able to look at that portrait and feel that it's truthful. They
Wow.
might be able
Yeah.
to put it
Yeah.
out in the world, nobody would know otherwise, but
Sure.
that family knows.
Yeah.
So the moms would often divulge really intimate information. And it was also just who I am and the relationship I have with my clients that we had the sort of relation. But that's when you start to see the masks and you start to see the protection of people's hearts and souls that we all do. But again, even more so when you're affluent and you're the target of criticism and you're the target of judgment and you're the target for people wanting your money. So there's more layers to how they protect themselves, which makes their personality more intense, but in my case, more interesting. Like
Yes, and
yeah,
I would also, layer on there that I know in the business of wealth management, for example, trust is currency. that you have to
Can
have
you
it. If you don't
imagine? Yeah.
have it, like you're out of business.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is like as someone's financial assets grow, their behaviors change, not necessarily as a function of, oh, I have more money, therefore I do these different things. No, how they are actually, this is not me saying like, oh, we should feel sorry for them. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm
Hmm.
saying is, I think a lot of people fail to realize when financial asset levels start to rise dramatically for people. You just mentioned this, right? Like there are a lot more people wanting things of them or wanting to sell them things. And one of the observations I've made over the course of my entire career is folks that really have a hockey stick, when it comes to their level of assets, can find themselves feeling incredibly lonely. Like CEOs talk about this all the time. Oh, I feel incredibly lonely, like blah, blah, blah. And it's because you are being pulled in so many different directions, whether it's interest based, whether it's emotions like family versus work or team dynamics on your team at work, whatever those things are. And one of the observations I've seen is like it's not uncommon for them to be surrounded by sycophants, people who
Yeah.
are just telling them what they want to hear.
Yep.
Because at some point, like people, the folks that are in contact with them have their own perception of
Yeah.
what this interaction should be like. And so all I'm saying here is these interactions and behaviors get incredibly complex very, very quickly. And I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like for folks that have like semi-celebrity or celebrity status, because
Yeah.
then, like the whole privacy thing and like,
Yeah. But imagine your life having that economic hockey stick. Just think about how many people can you actually say you're having emotions, like this is going on in your life and it's all wonderful,
oh yeah,
and you're having intense emotions around it, whether it's all sorts of emotions. But how many people do you think they can turn to and say, with their good fortune, and say, I'm scared, I'm
oh yeah,
afraid I'm not going to be able to maintain it, I'm
that's right,
afraid of the expectations that are put on me now, I'm afraid of how big my life has gotten. Like there's like
right,
nobody in their world that they can say that to, not even probably their spouse, because they don't want to concern their spouse. Like how do you turn to your spouse and say, things are going really well, honey, but I'm a little afraid things are going to crash. Like you're creating instability in the relationship, so you
right,
don't say
sure,
it there. You have
yeah,
so few people, and they're also a mentality, a clientele, no matter I have never met someone at any level of accomplishment or wealth that isn't also hanging out with people doing even better, because you're driven to always play tennis with a better player, right? So that's part
sure,
of the characteristic. So they're they're they've had incredible growth. They've risen to this new level. They have their own concerns, their own fears, but they're going to keep going because that's just who they are. And they're pulled by the excitement of people they have around them. It is an intense push and pull. I do have sympathy for a lot of people that find themselves in this situation. And
that's right,
again, people at other levels don't want to hear that. Like, oh, poor rich person. I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
I've seen it from the inside. It is not easy. It might be a different set of circumstances, but it is an intensely emotional ride. And I also, the other thing I thought was interesting, many of my clients I worked with for decades. So I saw the children of very wealthy families grow up, get
mm-hmm,
married, start life on their own, with parents who are incredibly wealthy, but also have decades of life ahead of them. So, newsflash, people don't just pass all their money on to their kids like people think.
you're absolutely right about
And what
that.
was interesting is I saw a lot of my clients, there's one client in particular, the house was so big, I don't even know how you describe it, but her bedroom suite was so massive, like her bedroom and all the accommodations of her lifestyle growing up. She got married and moved into a house that was a lot smaller than just her bedroom suite. And she married a guy that was definitely on the upswing. I mean, she married a good guy. I mean, their future was apparent.
Mm-hmm.
But just think about the mind. Do we feel sorry for them? No. Does she want you to feel sorry for her? No. She had a great attitude about it. But you also have to look and say, what must that be like? And I just wish, I don't care what you're standing, and this is what I feel like we just all, from all walks of life, I mean, can we just stop judging people? And I don't think it's any better to judge and criticize and giggle about wealthy people than it is by people's sexual orientation, their race. Like,
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
there's a lot of affluent bashing, particularly
Sure.
now.
Oh, sure,
Right?
sure.
And I'm
Especially
not saying there aren't a lot of, there's not, I'm not saying there, and you and I agree. We're not saying there isn't a lot of bad behavior, billionaire bad behavior.
Oh, sure.
Plenty of it.
Yep.
But you know what? It's not the money. The money isn't what made them jerks.
right.
Let's say, I mean, rarely is it the money. I mean, there's a set of values that drives them that maybe money allows them to accelerate their poor values.
Correct.
But it's not money in and of itself. And you're the money guy. You know this better than anybody. But I work with a lot of coaches that deal with money mindset. And money in and of itself has no power.
No, absolutely not.
It's
No.
what you do with it. It has no
That's
power,
correct.
has no energy. So if it has
That's right.
power to make you a jerk, you probably were anyway.
Yeah, yeah. It has an incredible amplification effect.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
Good or bad, it has a great
Good or bad.
amplification effect. That's
Yeah,
a
totally.
brilliant way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I saw recently that I was just kind of blown away by and really excited by was Melinda French Gates, came out and well, she's been doing these lovely like kind of sneaky like here's $20 million and changing people's lives that are trying
Yep.
to do something impactful in the world. One thing that I'm kind of focused on right now is I read Richard Reeves' book Of Boys and Men, which is talking about men. We have a problem with young men thriving in this country right now, and he sets out ways to address it. And the one woman in the world who's been about women and girls and blah, 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 and it's like, okay, Melinda French Gates funds those projects, and out of Pivot Ventures, she also gave this guy his organization $20 million because she also agreed that yes, we've been advocating for, equality, with girls and women in the workplace and the C-suite and the this and the that and whatever. But also acknowledging, oh gosh, but our young men are like, we have all of the data shows that like we have a problem. And we should be investing in trying to solve that problem because it like if we have a problem with our young boys and men, then we have a problem with our society long term. Yeah. And so I just saw that like here she is like, oh gosh, putting it in like, and I don't think that's a function of like she just woke up one day and decided like, oh, I'm gonna be a certain person in a certain way. No, she's been this person, and
Correct.
she's expressing her support in loud vocal ways that get amplified by the dollars behind it.
Yeah. And that's it. There's, during the pandemic and Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of, discussion between equality. But that's why we need to embrace the word equanimity, right? It's not equality. Equality is next to impossible to achieve. But we constantly need to lift up those that aren't given as much of an opportunity in the first place. That's equanimity, right? Equanimity is not about equality.
Right.
That's why you can't turn Black Lives Matter into all lives matter. Because in that moment, it's like, no. What matters is the young black men being killed on the street. What matters is the unfair, challenges of those of color. So equanimity is who needs to be lifted up. It's not about do they deserve equal treatment. It's about who needs to be lifted. And that's constant. And we need to get more into a yes and world because
I agree.
Yes, we're still a long ways from equanimity for women, but now we're seeing a vacancy in young men.
That's right.
Same thing with, the LGBTQ community. Like there's so many places that it's just, and this is not going to, I don't want to say it's not going to end because I'd like to have a positive attitude, but it's a constant evaluation of who needs to be lifted up. It's not just to me, it's not just a race of equality. It's like who needs to be lifted up to be given an equally fair chance. And that's just constantly going up and down because the moment David, talk about the relationship with business. So I hired my first business coach in 1999. Before yoga and business coaches were even cool. Like, 1999, nobody even
Sure.
knew what the hell a business coach was.
Yeah.
But to your point, I felt very lonely, quote unquote, at the top. I wasn't at the top, and my top was a lot business wise, a lot different than other people's. Um, but for me, I found it incredibly lonely because I had achieved a level of success that, as I was saying earlier, I couldn't bring my concerns home to my then wife because that would make her nervous. Who am I going to talk to? I had no peers that were at my level. I was a
Right.
photographer making a gazillion times more than any photographer I knew. Like, how am I going to talk to them about the
Right.
challenges of working with rich
That's not
people?
going to go
Like,
so well. Yeah.
so it was lonely. So I hired a business coach. My very first phone call with him, I was being all logical as a business owner and saying, the only opportunity I can see for growth in the business is that in any given year, one year to the next, on one year, the volume is up, but the average sale is down. And the next year, the average sale is up, but the volume is down. If I can ever get both things right, I think there's opportunity for growth. And he said to me, well, this is your fault, right? Now, first phone call with my new business coach, I'm like, okay, you're fired. Like he knows your fault. And but he went on to explain, he goes, I guarantee you that the year that the average sale is down, the next year you focus on that, but you take your eye off increasing the volume, and then vice versa the next year. And and he was absolutely right. When I fixed my internal problem of focusing on what was wrong and taking my eye off of what was going well, when I
Ooh.
made that change, my business increased to levels I never imagined.
Mm.
And it's the same thing with the way we run our lives and run our world. Like, the problem is we take our eyes off something else. I had a photography client of mine who had a son who got really caught up in drugs. And the focus of the family became so concentrated on that one that they never noticed the suffering of the other son who took his life.
Oh my goodness.
It's an extreme example, but we so naturally do this, like whatever grabs our attention. Just think about family dynamics. It's always the sibling, the child in the family that causes the most trouble, that gets all the attention. I was the easy one. My parents forgot I lived at home from the age of 12 on because I was easy. The middle one was all the trouble. So all attention funneled to him. Like, how do we keep him under control? But the easy one's like waving his hands. I'm like, hello, do you even notice I'm here? But I was the
Wow.
easy one. This is what happens in our society. So
Mm.
it's not an either or, it's a yes and at all times. Who needs to be lifted up now for whatever reason? Who as a society can we pay attention to that needs to be lifted up now so they can have a breather? And then we can keep our eye on the next segment of a society that needs help. That's a society of equanimity, and one where everyone actually has a chance to breathe.
Yeah, I love that. I also, as you're talking about this, I'm reminded of what you have on your website. You actually have your values listed.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was just an incredibly beautiful way to communicate who you are
Mm-hmm.
um, with folks that, I mean, like your work is incredibly personal, right? So as a
Mm-hmm.
coach, right, you're really getting into a lot of things with, your clients. And I loved that. And I even, it made me pause and think about, gosh, would I put my values on my website? And then it's like, well, yeah, I would put my values on my website.
Yeah.
The other thing that I found incredibly moving was, community means a lot to me. And your
Well,
waffle Sundays,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell me about those. Those are
So, and it's funny you're bringing this up because, yeah, well, I'll tell you the whole journey here. So, waffles are an amazing thing. Like, people gather for waffles. So I started this after I divorced. Now, just to
okay.
bring up a little of my story, I was married for 19 years to a woman, three
Okay.
kids, divorced, and continued to date women for 5 years after that, and then realized I was gay, which is why I came out at 44. And yes, I am a believer that I was gay all along. A lot of things mask that up. I mean,
Mm,
my childhood was in a family. It was such a toxic male environment. Father, two older brothers. Like, coming out was never an option. My father dying at such a young age ultimately was a gift because I don't know that I ever would have been able to come out with him alive. My brothers were
Wow.
to deal with my brothers when I came out was bad enough. That was toxic enough.
Okay.
So I divorced, 3 kids. I had the kids almost full time. It was a very unusual circumstance. Like I wasn't a father who had their kids every other weekend. Like I had them actually more than my ex-wife, at least for several years. And then it became a little more, she stabilized her own life and it became a little more even. So here I'm a divorced father and grappling for whatever I can keep normal for my kids. And one thing
Sure.
that was always expected with my kids growing up is that I would always make waffles for them, typically on Sundays, and
Wow.
always if they had a friend over. Like my kids growing up, like it was a big deal to them. And my waffles, by the way, are pretty incredible. Like we're not talking a pre-made mix. Like they're made from scratch, and I'm
I love
I'm
it.
beating the egg whites. I'm adding some
Wow.
special ingredients, and over the holidays, I replace the milk with eggnog, so they're eggnog waffles.
Oh
And
my gosh, I love it.
the best syrup because my former in-laws lived in Vermont, so it was only the
Oh
best
my
Vermont
goodness.
syrup,
Wow.
you know.
Okay.
So when my kids had their little childhood friends over, like my dad's gonna make us waffles. So waffles had this deep meaning to us in our family. So when I divorced, I used the waffles to get to know. We moved, and I got that's how I got to know my neighbors. Invited a couple neighbors. They started telling people, more people. So it was an open door policy on Sunday mornings at my house in Connecticut that anybody could stop in and I would make them waffles. All right. So then I moved to New York City. I moved to Miami. Now, when I moved to Miami, my first waffle, I knew no one there. I moved in a relationship. Relationship broke up shortly after we moved there. So I'm like, okay, I need to get to know people. Let's do this waffles thing again. So I invited 2 people that I knew in Miami for waffles. They told people. They told people. After about a year, we had 40 people on Sundays for waffles.
Oh
I
my
had to
goodness.
rent tables, like cocktail tables.
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
my apartment was good size and an outdoor balcony, but I mean, I had to rent cocktail tables for people to stand and eat waffles. So waffles has always been this thing that has just brought people together. And I've realized my love of community, which is one of my values, because it was never just about them coming to. I'm in the kitchen, and fortunately, every kitchen I had like an island or a peninsula, so it was open. But I'm trapped behind 5 waffle irons making waffles. But what was beautiful was watching people meet one another and the relationships that built. So yeah, so waffles has just continued to follow me. I was at a resort in Key West and met this guy and his wife in the pool. Somehow this topic came up. Actually, I think he looked me up and he asked the same question, and he loved the idea so much. He says, they lived, I think, somewhere in Ohio. And he said, would you mind if I stole this idea and did this in Ohio? I'm like, do it.
Oh
He
yeah.
did. He emailed me sometime later and said that the neighbors love it. It's like, this is how they're like building community.
That's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's so great. Um, just for our listeners, I want to go through like your values.
Okay.
And so I'm taking this from your website,
Yep.
jeffreyshaw.com,
Mhm.
and it says, what I value. Clarity of my non-negotiable personal core values is the result of working with Brant Menswar, author of Black Sheep.
Yeah.
But number one, acceptance. Everyone deserves to be seen, and that means everyone, all caps. Gratitude. See the beauty that's all around us and don't take it for granted. Relationships, not just my own, but connecting others. There's yours. I'm starting to
Correct.
see sprinkles of Waffle Sunday.
Yep.
Impact. Step out from the shadows, create an impact, and take responsibility. Trust. When it looks like life is falling apart, trust it's coming together for something bigger than I can imagine. And support. Providing what people really need, which is not always what people want.
Yeah. And trust is the hardest one for me. It just, and I always say, particularly again, being a business owner, we're
Yeah.
somewhat inherently controlling. And I don't like, well, and I don't like controlling.
You
I
don't
have a
say.
bad stigma, right? I mean, it's like, there's nothing wrong about being controlling. I mean, you have to, it can tip the scale and have a negative impact on other people. But, you know, I've got a life to live. I've got a life to take charge of. I've got impact to make. So yeah, I'm
That's
going to
right.
take some control over moving that forward. The challenge, though, is the trust becomes a really big challenge of that. And it's something I'm always working through, but I also find it to be true in many of my clients who are very high achieving individuals.
Mm.
And they will all very often say, particularly people of deep faith, and they do have trust and faith in a higher being, and they will often say, no, I've got trust. I'm like, really? Then why is it you appear to be somebody who's walking around with the weight of the world on your shoulder? I said, because the problem is, for as long as you believe that, you're limited by how much you believe you can handle. What
Yeah.
if you can handle so much more than you realize? What if what's available to you in the world is so much more than you can imagine? Like at some point, you have to surrender to and I'm not saying you have to surrender to a higher being. Like I don't follow any particular faith. But the work for me is life sometimes can be an absolute mess. And I've gone through various times in my life where it looks like the whole thing is falling apart.
Mm.
The difference is I've seen a pattern where, man, every time that happens, it falls together for something bigger than I could have imagined. I land on my feet in the right place, in the right situation, in a way that I could not have even imagined that or predicted it. So I believe in trust. I believe in truly trusting. And it is constant work for me because my instinct is like, let me beat it to the punch. Let me figure it out first.
Sure. Sure.
I think, my coaching group called High Achievers, I'm always very careful to explain how that name came about, particularly when I'm talking to somebody who's thinking about joining us. Because I use the term high achievers because it's a way of being, it's a mindset. Whether people are invited to join our group or not has nothing to do with their current level of success. In fact, most of our members had success in a different field altogether, and now they want something else for their lives. So it's what their new venture is brand new. It's not about high achievement as a mark as to what you've achieved. To me, when you are a high achieving thinker, all sorts of things, it's just an experience. It's a way of thinking. Like again, sort of like when you're high achieving and you have an ambition to be a high achiever, you are going to encounter more challenges. You're going to encounter more. Life is coming at you faster and stronger because you're putting yourself out there.
That's right. That's right.
And one of the terms I use a lot are souls gatekeepers. Like there's this weird thing that, and again, I'm not a biblical person, but what little I understand about some of the stories is that I think there's some truth to the idea that we're not supposed to know the ultimate truth. The Tower of Babylon comes to mind, like the story of that, like, people building a tower to figure out God, and God sweeps the tower down and spreads people throughout the world with different languages so that never again can mankind come together to figure out the ultimate source. I actually think something like that, something similar to that lives within us. And I'm working with people as a coach to help them get clearer to their message, closer to their truth, closer to the most purposeful work they can do. And while I'm helping them get there, they're facing more self-doubt. They're facing more fear. They're facing, and I call them the soul's gatekeepers. I'm like, yeah, your soul's gatekeeper is going to show up in so many different forms, almost as if you're getting too close to figuring everything out. So
wow, that's
don't
a great
back
way of
off,
looking at it. Yeah.
right? Don't back off, but just know that it's an indicator you're going in the right direction. Like the treasure is in front of you and you're being challenged about whether you should keep going. Because, and I see this in a literal form, I call it the retreat. People will get 90% into like jumping all in into wherever they're going in their lives. And at the last minute, they retreat. They pull back, right? They get the fear. I was writing a book, another book that never got published. I was writing a book about self-doubt. And I was circulating a survey. And the most impactful question on the self-doubt survey was I asked people, when do you encounter more self-doubt? Is it when you're doing something for the first time or when you're doing something you've done before? What's your answer? Do you have I almost don't want to put you in the spot because you may not match the majority, but you're entitled to your own Your own answer. So do you face more self-doubt when you're doing something for the first time or when you're doing something you've done before?
Ooh. Um, I know this is going to sound like a hedge, but it depends. Like there are times where I've done something. I'll give you a concrete example. Like throughout my career, I've done a lot of things in marketing for, the ultra high net worth consumer or the high net worth consumer. I've done that like over and over and over and over again. But there's times where the self doubt creeps in and it says like, well, wait a minute, but maybe things have changed this time. Maybe you're not seeing something. Maybe you're, but then also on the other side, okay, I'll say it's mostly when I haven't done something before has the most self-doubt. So I remember the first time I wanted to start my own business, I had a partner at the time that was like, "You'll never make it. You can't do it." Right? And that matched the self-doubt that was coming from inside. So it was a matching dialogue outside and inside. And you know what? At the time, I really wished, look, in hindsight, I really wished I could have like completely just blown up that
Hmm.
idea
Yeah.
of self-doubt because um, things that I have done and I've worked really hard to do have been successful. I've been very
Hmm.
lucky in that way. When I allow myself to understand, recognize, and see the self-doubt for what it is and set it aside and move forward, right? That's when I win.
Yeah. I would say, and I made that, and when I was doing this work towards this book, I was making it very clear that there was no goal to make self-doubt go away because I don't think that's possible, but we do
Right.
need to learn to manage it because it
Yeah.
can hold us back. I think so the survey showed hands down, far more people felt self-doubt when they were doing something they've done before
Oh,
than
wow.
over the first
Wow.
time.
Very interesting.
Right. So we'll talk in a moment about why that is, and it will make sense. But I also I think we're so used to managing that self-doubt that we almost don't even recognize it as self-doubt. So we notice the self-doubt doing something for the first time. The fact of the matter is we've gotten so, particularly high achieving people, we've gotten so accustomed to managing the self-doubt that shows up when we're doing something we've done before. But if you think about it, it makes sense because the moment you're doing something you've done before, there's now expectation layered on it, right?
Mm.
You now expect yourself to perform as better, if not better, because you're a high achieving person that thinks
Sure,
I'm going to
sure,
beat
sure,
the
sure.
previous time I did it,
Yeah.
right? So you're introducing an open pathway for self-doubt to come in. But again, we're so used to managing it. But my point is, what if we managed it quicker and easier? How much energy reserve would that leave us over to do even better than our current state?
Mm.
Because it's not going to go away. But we do lose a lot of valuable energy. And energy, in today's world, energy is a massive currency. Um,
Yes, it is.
because the life we're living is sucking so much energy out of us. Like
Right.
there's just so much conflict, so much social media and the technology advancements. It's just sucking energy out of us. So energy is, Taylor Swift said recently, energy is a luxury, and she was spot on. Like, but it shouldn't be a luxury. Like, but you should. Her point was you should treat your energy like a luxury. It is highly valuable. So be careful where you're giving it. Be
Yeah.
careful who you're allowing to take energy from you. And I agree with that. Like, I am all about preserving energy for where it's best applied. So the quicker we can close the gap of self-doubt, the quicker we can shut down the voices of the soul's gatekeepers, the
Mm.
more quickly we can step into what we're trying to accomplish so that we're not wasting energy, because it is incredibly valuable today to preserve that energy. I preserve even just the energy of sleep in a way that I never did before. Like, and that's thankful to the Aura Ring. Was I actually bought it because I have a heart condition. So I bought it so I could carefully monitor heart arrhythmias.
Okay.
Um, the heart condition I have is it's a combination of things, but a part of that is I have very low HRV, which is the heart rate variable. It's the amount of time between heartbeats,
Okay.
right? So normal is like 40 to 60, and mine is like 10, which
Okay.
means my heart beats at an incredibly fast pace, but it's wearing out the heart valves. What I realized is that when I preserve my energy by getting good sleep, that 10 HRV can go up to 20. And that's massive improvement for my
Wow.
heart
Oh
health.
my goodness.
It starts teaching you the benefits of preserving your energy. And it's like I said, it's part of that self-life
Wow.
era to me, like just paying attention to these things, because you get to a point in your life where I'm optimistic every day I wake up. I have really big plans for the next 15 years. And I'm also smart enough to understand the mortality. Right? You get to a point in
Sure,
your life.
sure.
I always say I have a healthy relationship with mortality. Like I no longer think I'm going to live forever, but I also am not doom and gloom. It's not going to happen anytime soon if I can help it.
Oh,
But yeah, the preservation of energy is massively important. So I think to be our best selves in business and in our lives, the more we can do to preserve that energy and what's left of the energy to apply it in the best ways we can in the world, that's where our fulfillment comes from, I
sure.
believe.
So high achievers aren't known generally for taking breaks and preserving energy and guarding it. And
Mine
maybe
are.
that's why. Well, that's why they need coaches, probably,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I love that you say that because I mean, I plan. So we have two. We meet twice a month. We have two live retreats every year,
Okay.
and the spring one is always in Paris. The fall one we move around, because the difference is that the spring one it's a group that starts new every March.
Okay.
Half of the group carries over from the previous year, and then
Okay.
half of the group is new. So there's always a mix. So, but it's a new gathering every March. So our first retreat is in end of April, early May in Paris, and everybody's in their own hotel because it's still a group coming together. And we spent 4 days coaching. The fall retreat, because now we're that much more intimate with one another, we rent one big house and everybody stays in it. And I'm always looking for a
Wow.
clever location. In October, our next retreat in October is in the Cotswolds in England.
Oh,
We've
very
rented
cool.
a we've rented a 13-bedroom castle, 27 acres. Like
Amazing.
so, because now I want to change the vibe. Like we're not all in separate hotels. Now we're
That's
all
right.
under the same roof.
That's
We're
right.
seeing each other without the hair done and the makeup, the face on, and we're in our
Sure. That's
PJs, and
right.
it deepens the intimacy. So I'm organizing these retreats and intentionally leaving a tremendous amount of free time, breathing time. We also have coaches within the group that are incredible. Like one of our coaches is really good at tapping exercises,
Okay.
which I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a neurological process of tapping different points,
Uh-huh.
and speaking. And so, she'll make that an option at 6 a.m. every morning. If you're up and you want to join her, you can. One of our other members, she's a sabbaticalist. Like she helps executives plan sabbaticals, short and long term, and
Wow.
succession plans. She also works with high level executives like 5 years ahead of time who are leaving their
Right.
multi-million dollar job and what do they do with their lives. So she helps
Yep.
people build succession plans. And one of the ways that she does that is what she refers to as a wayfinding experience. So she uses nature to take people to the woods and help them find themselves and their souls and the conversation. And so she'll make that option available to our group. Like we're on 27 acres of land. So I think, are a unique group because it is by nature the group of people I bring together do value the preservation of energy because they are out to do big things. Like they are high achieving. We're out to change the world.
Wow.
They do understand the value of self-preservation and
Right.
energy preservation.
Yes.
So we actually, every individual in the group, there's 10 of them and myself, every one of us, it's a big focus in our lives. And it works right into the structure of how we run the group as
That's
well.
great. I call those things that tap into your energy, but really have no place, like soul vampires.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just like it's like the Dementors in Harry Potter. It's just kind of like you
Yeah.
feel like they're just taking your soul away. It's like, oh my
And,
gosh, please make it stop.
and I just think life and society is more like that. I mean, US, it's tumultuous. There's just
Yeah, it is.
I don't have cable in my house because of it's a literally an energy suck. Like I don't
Same.
want the news. Like I don't want the things around me that can. One of our other members, I think she's so unique. Her name's Emily, and she originally called herself an alchemist, but basically I've reframed that. What she's incredibly good at doing is she is for people, and this is the clarity, kind of her niche.
Hmm.
She is for people that know there's something bigger inside themselves, but they don't know what it is or how to get there. Right.
Okay.
So she works with high level executives that they just know. And I propose the problem is that they have run out of options. Like there are people with, and we need these people because we need the big solutions in our future of our world.
Right.
And they have done all the things. They've done the meditation. They've done they've done all the things. Some woo woo, some not woo woo, but feel like they've run out of options. Like they know that they're big thinkers, big visionaries. They know there's something bigger in themselves. They've run out of options. Emily is so highly trained and experienced in ancient practices. And what, like, as I like to say to her, she's so fascinating because she's using Taoist exercises and ancient modalities to solve modern day problems. So she works with leaders, and some of it's body work, some of it's just energy work. I have seen her at one of our retreats. We had her actually work with one of our members, and you could see the difference.
Yeah.
So we have an interesting group.
I'm a believer in ancient modalities. There's something that my creative self feeds on nature, right? And I actually have a very firm belief that if you want to solve a problem, look to nature, because like even patterns, even art patterns, mathematical patterns, like all different types of patterns and things you can actually find in nature, right? You can find so much there. And I know like that's one thing that's just, it's particular to me that I'm like, oh, if I need to solve a problem, instead of going fast, I need to slow way down and I need to get into the woods because thankfully I live close to the woods and like I can literally just go outside and like enter the woods. But yeah, that sounds like you have such an incredible group of
to your point, I live in a city with very small plots, but it's Florida, and I have banana trees right outside of my office windows, which I can look at right at this moment. And similarly, like I sit there, banana trees grow crazy quick as far as how quickly they sprout up a new leaf or even grow in height. But the leaves graciously and beautifully furl open over about 2 or 3 days. And I sit there and I can see one now, probably a half a day into it. Like it is the most gracious, graceful, beautiful thing to watch a banana leaf unfurl over 3 days. And to your point, there's a lesson in that for us. Like, why are so many people telling us we have to pivot like it's a sharp left turn? Why, right? I mean, nature unfurls gracefully, beautifully. It recognizes, as we need to recognize in ourselves, we go through various iterations of our being throughout our lives. And some people get down on themselves, especially the people I work with. They'll hear the voices telling them that they lack focus because they've been told that their whole life, because they're doing this now when they used to do that. So they're a horrible person. They lack focus.
Sure.
And I'm like, it's not a matter of lacking focus. Like your human soul is supposed to go through iterations. It's just an iteration of change.
Sure.
And it's not a pivot, and it's not abrupt. Right. To your point, like I do the same thing. It's like watching a banana leaf unfurl. It's graceful. It's gentle. It becomes massive and everything you want it to, but it's not a hard push. It's not a pivot.
Right. Actually, I think that is a great spot for us to like conclude. Could be like literally. And I think I would even apply that to like modern day society. Like society feels like it's like changing so fast and there's hard pivots here, or the request is hard pivots here and there. And yet like, yeah, if we just slow down and like let it unfurl a little bit, it certainly makes things, more graceful.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
David, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Coded in Gold. If you liked this episode, please like, comment, or subscribe to help grow this community. You can find all the links to follow the podcast and our amazing guests in the show notes. In the next episode, I'm joined by Xanthi Wells, the VP of Global Creative at Pinterest. You won't want to miss it. Thank you, and take good care.